I started to realize when I started doing this work that like I had a lot of things holding me back from how I was raised around money. So at a young age, my parents lived paycheck to paycheck. There was always like fighting about money and things like that. So basically at a young age, I was like, I need to make money because I need to help support, like I need to make my own money.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash that like button and click subscribe. For those of you listening on a podcast platform, be sure to subscribe on whatever platform that is and leave us a rating if you can. The more likes, ratings, and subscriptions that we get, the more we can spread the message and grow our community. So we also have a free Facebook group. It's called the Average Joe Finances Network. Check us out, join the group, join the community, ask questions, and become a part of the team. All of our other social media accounts are listed in our flow page, and we have them in the video or podcast description below.
Welcome back to the Average Joe Finances podcast. I'm your host, Mike Cavaggioni. Let's get to today's episode.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? So today's guest is Tawnya Schultz, and she is the founder of the Money Life Coach, an online platform helping women learn how to budget, pay off debt, invest, and leave a legacy. So after being in debt for most of her life, Tawnya decided she needed to turn her life around at the age of 34, and she aggressively paid off $28,000 of debt in a year. Actually 8 months. At the time, Tawnya was only making about $60,000 a year, and it seemed impossible at first. She worked extra jobs and side hustles. She ended up landing a full-time role for a tech company in San Francisco, which enabled her to pay off her debt in just 8 months. So inspired by the way she felt about being free of debt, Tawnya got certified as a financial life coach and founded the Money Life Coach, offering one-on-one coaching, monthly workshops, live talks, and an online personal finance and budgeting course. It's called Permission to Spend, with over 8 hours of content where Tawnya teaches you her proven budgeting system for paying off debt, organizing your money, and working on your money mindset in what she calls the fastest path to financial freedom. Tawnya posts weekly videos and daily tips on Instagram and has over 70,000 followers on TikTok. She spreads the message of taking control of your finances, no matter your age or how much money you make. Her mission is to empower millions of women to live debt-free and create their ultimate financial future. Now, I want to point this out. I'm not a woman, but I came across her TikTok profile and was immediately inspired and said, wow, I need to have Tawnya on the show. That's actually how I found her. So guys, she's obviously sending out a good message because she definitely caught my attention. So Tawnya, absolutely thankful to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. Hey, so I want to jump right into it. You have a pretty long bio, right? So I gave a pretty good description about you and how you got here. But again, it's not too detailed, right? So I want to go into a little more detail about that. So if you could share a little bit more about yourself, share your story. Like, how did this all get started for you?
Yeah, I think ever since I was a kid, I was interested in finance and making money. And a lot of the work that I help coach others on is on their beliefs around money and things that happen in childhood. So I started to realize when I started doing this work that like I had a lot of things holding me back from how I was raised around money. So at a young age, my parents lived paycheck to paycheck. There was always like fighting about money and things like that. So basically at a young age, I was like, I need to make money because I need to help support, like I need to make my own money. And so I think ever since then, I was driven to learn about finance and all that. When you start to adult and go move out on your own, you start to realize stuff's more expensive than you realized. You don't know you never learned how to budget, and credit cards are in your face. Debt is everywhere. Debt is normal. So for me, it was really about, and I always had this weird feeling like debt was holding me back. Like debt, I wasn't meant to have debt. So it was like this confliction because I was like, I need debt for certain things in between paychecks and certain things because I wasn't set up properly financially. But I always had this like stronghold, like debt's holding me back, or I want to be debt. What really happened was I was in my early 30s and I moved in with my boyfriend, and immediately I felt almost trapped or stuck because I was like, if anything happens in this relationship, I don't have my own money. I don't have money. I just had this all of a sudden like awakening that started to make me feel like I want to feel empowered around money, and I don't want to feel like I have to rely on somebody else, especially as a woman. I feel like that's really important, and just to know where my money is going in and to figure that out. So that's really came and really woke me up.
Right on. Yes. I was taking some notes while you were talking. And I think this is something super important that I want to point out is that you started getting interested in finances as a kid. And the reason why is because you and your family, you guys were living paycheck to paycheck. It was causing fights and arguments about money, which this is such a common thing in many middle-class homes and families. Like people live paycheck to paycheck and there isn't really much wiggle room. And you realize that credit cards and debt is something that can hold you back. But at the same time, it was for you to get out on your own was like a necessary evil that you had to deal with. And that probably contributed to racking up that $28,000 in debt that we talked about in your initial bio. I guess what I want to know then is what did you do to change your mindset to be able to like get out of debt and just change? Because this whole thing, it's not like an easy thing that you could just flip a switch and say, okay, I'm going to pay off my debt now. I'm going to figure this out. It just doesn't happen like that. So what was the thing that triggered you to say, okay, it's time to put my bootstraps on and pay off this debt and get myself to a better place financially?
I would say I was already into personal development and learning about myself in all kinds of different ways. And so when I started having those feelings of, I need to figure this out, what can I do to help? What can I do to educate myself? Instead of playing the victim, let me take action. So I started listening to podcasts, reading books. My mom was also trying to get out of debt at the time and had been talking about Dave Ramsey. And for me, which I'm sure you talked about on the show, Dave Ramsey is really well known in the personal finance space, but I started listening to his show. And because from what I had heard from her, I was like, is this get out of debt scam? What is this thing? You know what I mean? I was kind of like questioning it. But hearing other people's stories that he was having on his podcast, hearing other people who had more debt than me, who are making less than me, be able to pay off debt. I was like, what are they doing? How can I I was just really like, what are these other people doing that I'm not doing? How are they changing their habits?
Yeah, it's a great question to ask yourself. So yeah, of course, we've talked about Dave Ramsey on the show before. That's actually, part of my story too, is getting out of debt was I was following his baby steps. We followed steps 1 through 3 to get to where we're at. I don't fully follow Dave Ramsey as most real estate investors don't. So because for us, debt is a necessary evil for certain things, certain investments and things like that. And so for us, it's all about leveraging it. But for some people, like getting out of debt is like the ultimate goal. And that is like the life-changing moment for them. And to be able to stay out of debt is also something that's life-changing. If you don't want to own your own home or you don't want to own property, hey, that's fine. That's your prerogative, right? But if you're out of debt and then you're able to start investing in something that's at least keeping up with or beating inflation, then you're putting yourself in a much better and safer spot towards securing your future. Now, when you flip the switch and then you got yourself, on this journey to get out of debt and to get yourself financially independent, how long ago was that? And so I know it took a year and then 8 months after you got that tech job, but how long ago was that? And where are you today since getting out of debt?
Yeah. So that was in the end of 2016, 2017, early 2017 was when I decided to go on the debt-free journey and really be aggressive, finally start committing to budgeting. Budgeting was one thing I always heard you needed to do, was never taught how to budget. So I was like, I'm going to commit to doing this finally and really get focused on where my money's going and put as much money as I can on debt and get it. My whole goal, and if you listen to Dave Ramsey and other people, it's like, I want my debt to be gone fast. I don't want it to be even take me 3-5 years. What do I need to do to pay it off? I had $28,000. So I figured out that it could take me about a year, like being aggressive, but it was also realistic. I was like, it's a year, it's hard, but it's also realistic. And with the extra job, the money that I got from my new job, I was able to pay that off quicker. And so within that year, I paid off the $28,000 and then saved up my emergency fund in the next 6 months. So for about that first 1.5 to 2 years, I was paying off debt, saving up my emergency fund of 6 months. So about $25,000, $30,000 cash, which I'd never had a savings in my entire life. So that alone was a huge change and just amazing feeling that I had. And that's what really inspired me to start coaching people and then start helping people, because I was like, wait, I just did this. It took me so long to figure it out. I can help accelerate this for people. That's when I started getting into coaching and really getting focused on then, like you said, the next step would be investing. I've been looking at my numbers. I was feeling behind for my age. Like, how can I now get to where I want to be in 5-10 years and build wealth?
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. It's funny because I have a similar path like I talked about before. We followed the baby steps and pretty much close to the same amount of debt. I think it was somewhere between 26 and 27,000 for me. And we paid that off and saved $40,000 in the bank, which to me, I couldn't believe that we were able to do that. But the biggest thing was the disciplining ourselves to really watch our spending habits, to really pay attention to every single penny that was coming out of our bank account and make sure that it all had a place to go, that we were sending those dollars to the proper home. I always like to look at different ways of you're employing your dollars or whatever, but you have to know where it's going. If you're just sitting here and you've got subscriptions going here and you've got this over here, or you're swiping your card to go out to eat, you're really not doing a good job paying attention. That's like the first step, is really making that choice to say, I'm going to discipline myself. And then the other thing that you talked about, which is huge, was education, right? This is something that you've mentioned more than once now, at least twice, talking about going all the way back to the beginning when you decided to start. You educated yourself. You started listening to podcasts. You started following Dave Ramsey, and stuff like that is super important. And you also said something else that absolutely drives me bananas. You said you were never taught how to budget. Isn't it amazing that we can make it all the way to adulthood and never learn how to budget? This isn't a skill that they teach you in school. This is not something you get out of public education. Absolutely mind-boggling. So my wife and I, we homeschool our kids, and financial literacy is actually part of their curriculum. Like, we make sure they understand how to do this. We teach them how to balance a checkbook. We teach them how to make a budget. We teach them how to put 30% of their money away into savings. We teach them to put another 10% away for charity to give away and live off of 60% of your income. That's like kind of the way that we're trying to have our kids think about money. And this was at a point where I couldn't even do that myself at the point. I think we were living off of 70%, but I wanted to be like really get that into my kids' heads. This is really the route you want to go. If you could do that, by the time you're my age, you'll be multimillionaires and ready to retire and just do whatever the heck you want, as long as you're staying focused on your goals. I think, like you said, like, education is huge, and it's something that it's a decision that you have to make no matter what stage of life you're at right now. I don't care if you're in your 40s, you can still do this.
Yeah. And I feel like as humans, we try to overcomplicate. We try to make things more complicated than they need to be. So cool. I feel like taking it to the basics, living on less than you make, like really simple financial principles. When you think about it, living like our grandparents used to do, they used to have to save, and there wasn't the debt. You couldn't use a firm and spend $20, make 5 payments of $5 or whatever it is now. It's crazy. It's so in our face that debt is normal. And so it's like, how can you be different? Because it's going to keep setting you back, and you're going to keep having to rely on it. Like I did in between paychecks, I'd have to put my groceries on my credit card because I didn't know what was going to clear in my account. And that was a part of budgeting too. Like, I'm going to have $100 for groceries every week, and you budget all that out, it actually gives you freedom. The budget actually gives you freedom and allows you to spend your money without guilt and without feeling, I don't know what's going to come out of my account or hit my account. So
absolutely. Yeah. Because you know what those dollars are meant for. Like I said before, it's about employing your dollars, what you have allocated for that specific thing. So when we first started this off, so my wife has always been the saver. I am the spender, right? So it's kind of like the opposite when it comes to that. And for me, like I enjoyed going out to dinner. I enjoyed going out, like having our date nights. Our kids used to have this place that they used to go to called My Gym that would do a parents' night out thing. And you drop the kids off for 3 hours there, and we would go out to dinner. And I said, hey, I want to continue to be able to do that while we're trying to budget. So I was like, I want you to put money to the side specifically for that and have a budget built. So we made it so that we knew on those Friday nights when we were going to do that. I think it was like once a month we did this, but we knew exactly where we were going to go and what we were going to eat, how much it cost, and we would budget like that exact amount because we absolutely loved going this. It's cheesy. It's a place called Salad Works. We absolutely loved going there. We would eat like these giant salads for dinner, and it was absolutely amazing. But something that simple, and we budgeted for that, what a difference it made because we didn't feel like we were taking away from ourselves. And I think that's like the biggest challenge that people face when they're trying to budget and get themselves to a point where they can save up money or pay off their debt, they feel like they have to sacrifice so much. But realistically, you don't have to sacrifice as much as you think you do. As long as you put some money to the side to do specific things and not go over that, give yourself like a comfortable buffer. We called it fun money. So we would budget fun money, and that would be the money that we had to do certain things. If we were going to take the kids out, we want to take them out for ice cream or something like that, it comes out of that budget. So definitely think that's super important. I want to touch on one thing that you had mentioned earlier before I forget about this, because I wrote this down. You had mentioned that when you got out of debt, you built up an emergency fund and you had $30,000 to $40,000 in there. Why did you save that much? Can you explain why it's important to have a specific amount in your emergency fund?
Yeah, so I personally did because at the time I still had inconsistent income. So I always recommend they say that 3 to 6 months of expenses. So 3 months would be if you have a full-time job, 9 to 5, it's pretty standard. You're getting the same amount of money every month. 3 months of expenses, not income. People get that mixed up a lot. So just having that chunk of money is going to help you feel like that's your personal insurance between you and life. So things are going to come up, last minute travel for an emergency, car repair, things, healthcare, something with health that comes up. So there's so many things that can happen with finance. And that's where people get into more debt. What happens is you go into more debt and that stresses you out more than having the cash to pay for it and be like, okay, I don't have to worry about paying for this anymore, which I used to do with my car, would always stress me out when something would happen. So for me, I had 6 months. I wanted to build up 6 months for expenses, and that was about $25,000. And yeah, just having that amount, I would say I've used it a couple times for bigger expenses, for car repairs, like a couple $1,000 car repair that came up, and little things here and there. But for the most part, when you're budgeting and really start getting intentional and doing it consistently, you can cash flow a lot of the emergencies that come up. So a lot of things that happen, you can pretty much prepare. You'll have a little bit of time to save up the money or cash flow it too. But just having that emergency, especially with COVID, which has happened with people losing their jobs, you have 6 months runway. You have time to look for a job or get that a little bit of unemployment. That just relieves so much stress from your life if you have that cash. Yes, relieving stress, that is huge. And it's funny because you mentioned like what's going on with the pandemic. I used to always tell people too, 3 to 6 months. Now I tell people, because of the current environment we're in, 6 to 12 months really is what my goal is, and what I've been sharing with other people that I think they should do, just because nothing's guaranteed. And if there's one thing that this pandemic showed us is just how replaceable people are and how expendable people are in their 9 to 5 jobs. The job will continue without you. So it's something that we all have to remember and just be mindful of, because nothing's guaranteed in life except for death and taxes. Yeah. So I want to rewind back a little bit, and this is a little more personal, but this is going to go back to your childhood. I want to talk about, like, when we go back in the past, you said that there was family arguments and fights over money. Now, I know for me as a child, it was always a very taboo topic to talk about money at the family, like dinner table or setting or anything like that. Do you have a similar experience? Was it always something that was very awkward and you didn't really hear people talk about unless it was an argument regarding money? Yeah, I do. I feel like it was always a stressor in my family. And my mom and dad they didn't budget together. They didn't create a plan together. They would spend their money differently. And then I remember my mom being like, we're going to hide these bags from your dad. Like when we'd go shopping, didn't want him to know. And then my dad on the other side would bring home, I tell the story a lot, a brand new car. I have a memory of him buying a brand new car, coming home all excited. And that's for one of my first money memories was we come outside to see the car. I'm like, you did what? Like starts like freaking out that there was a car that he didn't talk. That's a pretty big deal. So I was immediately like froze in that, and that stuff gets ingrained in you as a kid and really impacts you. So I will say it was always a fight and a struggle. And then when we eventually got divorced, money was a big part of that reason as well.
Yeah. I asked that because I seem to always remember that as a child. It wasn't something that was okay to talk about. Like we would have like family dinners, like at my grandmother's house on Sundays, and nobody ever talked about money or what they're doing to better their situation or anything like that. It was always just very taboo. If somebody in the family had more money than someone else, it was always looked at, oh, you're whatever. And it's bothersome because like people in, I guess, my age group, my generation, like the older millennials, I was born in 84. This is like a typical thing. And it was just a very taboo topic to talk about. And nowadays you see families like at the dinner table talking about investing and this and that. And I think what we're starting to see is like the next generation, at least like the millennials' children, are probably going to inherit, not just inherit, but they are going to build like the next generation of millionaires and just wealth builders, because it's not a really taboo topic anymore. It's something you hear about all the time. People are talking about money, talking about their finances. What can I do to get better at this and that? There's podcasts on it. There's just so much information out there that you can saturate yourself with and really just turn yourself into a sponge and absorb as much content as you can. And you really can't go wrong. So that's why when I came across like your TikTok channel and stuff, immediately it brought a smile to my face. And I said, cool, this is definitely somebody I'm following, because it's just another way to get that ingrained in my head. Because as you're swiping through, there's other stupid things that pop up like dance trends and this and that or whatever. And then you see a dance trend of somebody like you doing a dance trend, but talking about money. And it's like, oh, okay, got my eyes back on the prize again. This is what I'm actually here for. This is what I'm actually on TikTok for, is I'm looking at different business profiles, right? Not all the different anime ones, because I like to watch those too. Because I'm a giant nerd. But anyway, so it's just turn yourself into a sponge, a content sponge, and learn as much as you can. And don't be afraid to have these conversations with your family, if you have kids, have these conversations with your kids. I think that's one of the most important things, is educating the youth of today on making better financial decisions. I really want to empower my children to just do much better than me. I want to do better for myself and my family and just be a better provider. But at the same time, to get there, it's some work and some effort, and it's discipline. Yeah. I've started multiple side hustles that have failed. I've started some side hustles that are doing well. And then staying on top of it is the important thing. Now, I want to ask you, okay, because now you're a financial coach, right? So you're helping mainly women, which is fantastic. So you're helping other women step up their financial literacy game and learn how to be, more independent and things like that. And I think that is super important and a much needed thing we need in today's society. Yeah. And so with doing all that, with coaching, with doing your social media production and content and things like that, what do you enjoy the most about putting this information out there and helping other people?
There's so many things, but I feel like when the light bulb comes off, when I'm seeing results that my clients are having and seeing how it's impacting their life long term, and how they're also impacting their families, that's pretty incredible to say, I'm not the one making the change. I'm just guiding them and giving them tools and helping them create a plan. Because most people, unfortunately, like what you're talking about with the planning for your budget every other week with your wife, when you have a plan, you know what you're aiming at. Most people live their life figuring out as they go. But if you create this plan, that's like the best thing, just seeing those results. And I've had a lot of my clients pay off all their debt, become completely debt free, and just really focused on now knowing where their money is going and being a lot more intentional, not bouncing checks, like a lot of things that we take for granted. Some of us take for granted now that we are debt free.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sometimes you can forget that. I remember when we first got out of debt and we had the money sit in the bank, I would make the comment like, "Oh, we got enough to go buy a new car cash," and my wife would just give me that side eye, like, "Yeah, okay, I know. Did you hear what you just said? Shut your mouth." So things like that, but it's having that good balance between us, right? We knew we wanted that money to do renovations or anything like that on the house that we knew we wanted to buy when we got to Hawaii. Now, fortunately, being in the military, I was able to use a VA loan and put 0% down. I used some of that money towards closing costs, but then the rest of it we use towards renovations and doing other things to make the house our own. And one of the awesome things is, especially with the housing market the way it is, the house is appreciated so much. Like it's gone up in value almost $300,000. It's absolutely insane. Yeah. So it's something like that. I would have never had the opportunity for something like this if we didn't get ourselves out of debt. And one of the things to keep that reinvigorated, because sometimes you do get lost in the sauce, you start to get complacent. And what we see in the military too is complacency kills, right? So when you start to get complacent, other things start to rack up. But we had to do like a major project on the house and we had to finance some of it. And now we finance it for 0%, but that 0% is only for 2 years. So if we don't pay attention and that thing lapses and we hit that 2-year mark and we haven't paid it off, guess what? All that interest for the 2 years is going to hit and we're going to get punched in the face with that. So yes. It's very important that you're paying attention to those little things, those minor details, paying attention to dates and things like that. And one of the things we started doing when we first came out here to Hawaii that I really like, because We started this back in Virginia. We were doing the envelope method. I'm sure you've heard of that, but I wanted to do something more with just keeping it more electronic. So we opened some more bank accounts and we started doing sinking funds. So we track all of our money. We have a fund for like car repairs and car maintenance. So there's a fund for that. We have a fund that is for, we have pets and stuff. So we have a vet bill fund. We have a holiday and birthday fund because we know pretty much how much we're going to spend on everybody for their birthday. This is family too. If we're sending gift cards or anything like that, we know how much we're going to spend and we budget that out and we know how much each month we have to put into that account and when we're going to be making withdrawals throughout the year because, hey, birthday's here, and so's birthday's here, this holiday's here. So we do it that way. And then we have another fund, like we have, so like our emergency fund, right? We have emergency savings for that. We have a fund where we put money away for investing. This is for like future things. And then we have different investment accounts. So I have cash valued life insurance policy on myself and my wife. And then we also have a joint investment account that we pretty much opened up for the kids because we didn't want to do a 529 plan because if they want to go to college, they can use my GI Bill or by the time my kids are college age, I'll be able to just pay for their college if I want to. But we have a joint investment account that we've been putting money into for them, basically to split between the two of them when they're older, like if they want to use it to put as a down payment on their first home or anything like that. I used to say that it would go towards if they get married, we could use that towards their wedding, but I think I'll probably still pay for that on my own instead and let this be like a life starting thing for them starting their lives off when they move out. Now, at the same time, I'm hoping that I've taught my kids well enough that they don't want to have this huge lavish wedding and rather do like a justice of the peace thing and have a little party. I'm down for that. Hopefully, if they're paying attention to what me and their mother are teaching them, they'll probably say, yeah, we're probably just going to do something small or whatever. If they even choose to get married, whatever they want to do, I really don't care. It's their life, their choice. I just want to know that I've got options there to help them out and get a little bit of a head start in life because it's something that I never had, that my wife never had. We're trying to make sure we could give them like a better start. So I've been on my own ever since. Like I moved out of my house at 18 to join the Navy and haven't looked back since. And it's just been a wild ride of trying to figure out this whole adulting thing in life ever since then. And I'll tell you, like you look at some kids nowadays, they're staying in their parents' home until they're like 30. And you see that often. But at the same time, that's like the new normal thing too. And people live with their parents to help them out and things like that. So doing it at the age of 18 and never looking back, you're still really young to the world. So it's been quite an adventure so far. I could definitely say that.
I was similar too. I moved out right when out of high school and moved to Southern California or to San Diego. I was already living in Southern California. I moved to San
where are you from originally?
Lancaster, California. So northeast, outside the desert, the flatland, about an hour from LA. And then I moved to San Diego, was going to go to school down there, or I did go to school down there. I started at the junior college. But college for me, I knew I was going to have to pay basically on my own from in high school. I was like, I just got to figure this out. But it was so ingrained in me to go to college. And academically, I liked education anyway. Shocker, I know. But yeah, I wanted to go to school and go to college. I went to a junior college first, so it was more affordable. I got federal aid and then transitioned into a university. But I knew I was going to have to take on some student loans, but I worked all throughout college. And I think that's really important too, is the student loan crisis. We can have whole episodes about that, but there's just a lot with the pressure of people taking so much debt on at a young age and feeling obligated to. And I feel like it's just good to really show your kids. I feel like it is on the parents to educate and help show your kids, like, I can't afford to help you out this much, or you should go to a junior college first. You don't have to go to a private out-of-state college. There's so many different ways to still go to college and still make great financial living, not having to go.
I want to talk about student loans for a little bit too, for a second, because man, that is like the biggest scam in all of history, because you have these students going to college. They get these loans, they get approved for these loans that they'll take out a 6-figure loan, and then they're going to graduate college and get a job paying $60,000 a year. And when all the interest, you're paying it off almost for the rest of your life. It's absolutely ridiculous. Part of the problem is a lot of these colleges and universities they're raising their prices too high. They're making education too expensive because they can get away with that, because the banks, especially like these federal loans, they're going to keep pumping it out, these higher amounts, because it's a federally backed guaranteed loan. So they know they're going to get it, whatever. So it's kind of crazy. If you ask me, I think student loans should be like a flat fee. Okay, if you're going to borrow this much money, like if you're going to borrow $100,000, you have to pay back $120,000, and that's it. And just be done with it. Don't sit here and charge interest over the years and things like that. That way the bank gets their money and then some. Now, You could argue that they're losing money that entire time because of the fact that their inflation every year, like this year's 5.4%, absolutely crazy. Meeting that threshold that they're losing money. Yeah, I get that. But at the same time, the whole point of a student loan is to try to help these young people start their life and be able to pay for their education. I don't know. You can also make it education gets paid for by the government, but a lot of people are like, oh, you can't do that. That's communism, blah, 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 whatever. Look, I get it. I think there needs to be some type of reform to help make it more affordable or just make it more realistic, because somebody shouldn't graduate from college and have to pay these loans for 20, 30 years, pay off their mortgage before they pay off student loans. That is absolutely crazy. So off my soapbox.
No, I'm the same way. I post a lot about student loans because I have strong opinions on them as well. But yeah, the average person pays off their student loan in 21.1 years, I just read. So you're going to graduate and then have a loan you're paying off. And even if the average student loan debt is around $37,000 right now, you pay that off in 20 years, you're paying about 10, depending on your payment, 10,000 or more in interest, if not, more. So you have to be really mindful. But I do think there are options that people don't think about, and people go straight to, I just want to go to university right away. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's where the education does come from the parent to help guide that decision and not just make it on the, of course, the kid's going to be like, I want to go to some school across the country. Why wouldn't he? And party or whatever it is. But I got out of school with, I think, just under 15,000, 10 to 15,000 of student loan debt that I was able to pay off pretty quickly. But I did. Then the thing about student loan debt that's tricky is it's free money. As a student, you're thinking, well, like, I don't got to pay this back. Like, it's a weird mindset shift because some of that money doesn't exactly have to go towards paying for your tuition. Like a lot of that student loan money can go towards your housing and different expenses. Yeah,
like living expenses and stuff.
Yeah. So it's a tricky thing that happens, but I don't think it should be legal to let these kids sign for much amount of money. I think I don't know why that's not.
Yeah, there needs to be some type of reform there, 100%. Look, I do believe, hey, if you take out a loan, you got to pay it back. Like, we shouldn't just wipe out debt. But at the same time, if we did wipe out half of the student loan debt, all the banks that are going to get this debt wiped from them have already made that money back and then some in the interest that they've been collecting over the years. I don't think you're really hurting people too bad. But at the same time, you're going to help out like this next generation to be in a better spot where they can be good tax-paying citizens and help the economy out and help stimulate the economy, because that's less money that they're putting towards debt and more money that they could throw back into the economy. Everyone's got their opinion and mindset on that. And I try to stay away from all that stuff on this podcast. But student loan debt is a very important topic for a lot of my listeners, because a lot of them here have gone to college and they're trying to figure out how to pay that off. And for the most part, most people will want to pay off their other debts first before they pay off student loan debt, because it's usually generally a lower interest rate. But then the credit cards are sitting here like 17, 18 to 26%. Of course, you want to pay those off first. You want to do your debt snowball. Sometimes it's really wild when you got to prioritize how these things go. And then you realize, wow, I'm still paying on this loan 15 years later. This is insane.
You're like, and what did I go to school for? And of course, what's the percentage of people? 60% of people don't use their degree, or whatever that percentage is, like more than how. Yeah, it's just insane.
Okay, so I want to ask you this then, right? Because if somebody's going to go to college and get a degree, and let's say they're not able to use it, why is it important? If somebody's in a 9-to-5 job, why is it important to but to start like a side hustle and really force it to work, really make it work? Why is something like that so important?
I think there's just so much opportunity right now online. Money doing so many different things. Gary Vee, who's a big follower or big celebrity, I guess, on social media, he talks about just going to garage sales and Marshalls and flipping stuff on eBay, like pretty simple things that can make you a side hustle. It doesn't have to be starting some business and having to spend all this money on it. You can do so many things being scrappy and not having to invest a lot to get things off the ground. And I feel like there's a lot of opportunity to just be like, hey, what do I like doing? Or not just like, how can I make tens of thousands of dollars a month? Maybe it's like, hey, how can I make an extra $500 a month, or like a little bit more to help either accelerate your debt, or maybe that does eventually become your full-time job. But I feel like the opportunity right now with social media is incredible. If you just pick something and go all in on it and stop switching, trying different things, give that enough time to grow and build. And if it doesn't work, then try something else. But yeah, the opportunity is amazing.
100% agree with that. As a matter of fact, that's probably going to be the trailer for this episode right there, what you just talked about, especially with like social media and just these other opportunities that present themselves. There's so many things out there that you can do to make a little extra money on the side. I had a guest on my show a long time ago that talked about he had an eBay side hustle selling sneakers. He would go and resell sneakers or find sneakers for cheap at like Marshalls and things like that and sell them. And he put his kids through college with that. Like they graduated, they got their degree with no student loan debt because of this side hustle that he did with selling sneakers. So it's absolutely amazing the things you could do. And just, again, you have to want to do it. You have to have that bug or that mindset. You can't, not everyone's going to wake up and be like, oh, I'm going to go start a side hustle and make some extra cash and pay off debt. Some people can't do that. They have to rely on their discipline and being able to pay off on their own. But at the same time, there really is a lot of opportunity out there for people that are listening right now to go out and start something. There's definitely things out there. And if you start something up and it's not working out and you find that you're losing money or you're not making enough to where it's enjoyable, then stop and try something else. You don't have to sit here and kill yourself on a side hustle. I've done that before. Like I had a drop shipping business and it started off pretty good and then it started to tank and I said, I don't want to do this no more. So I stopped. I've even flipped websites before too. I built a website from scratch, an e-commerce store, got a really good domain name and I sold it on a website called Flippa and I made a profit, a nice profit too. For a startup site, I had no stats. I had no sales. I had nothing. I said, hey, I built this. It's ready to go. Whoever wants it, here's the price. And I got exactly what I asked for it, which was absolutely amazing to me. Now it took, I think it was on Flippa for like 7 months before somebody even bit. But at the same time, I wasn't even expecting it. I totally forgot about it. All of a sudden I get an email saying, hey, I want to buy your website. I'm like, sweet. I forgot I had that on there, which was really cool. So I had to go and renew I had stopped paying the monthly Shopify fees. Oh, yeah. So I had to go and renew everything, turn it back on, make sure all my products were still there, and then turn it over to this guy. So it was, man, that was a pretty fun experience for sure. There's so many things you can do.
Yeah. I didn't even know about anything like that. So it's like when you're educating yourself, when you're listening to podcasts and you hear things and recognize, what is this thing? Hey, maybe I should look into it. If you're called to do something, like for me, when I got out of debt, I was really called to coach. Like how could I then step into that and start putting myself out there on social media? I didn't have clients yet, but I was just started creating content because I'm like, people are going to see it. And eventually I want to do a course, which I ended up creating and do the one-on-one coaching, but you just never know. I would just say, listen to those callings or those things when you see them and get creative. There's just write down a list of things, like all the things that you could try to do. And with COVID, I know there is a lot of random work out there that people are looking for. So there's an opportunity for sure.
I was doing Uber on the side, like on the weekends, like before I was podcasting, I would do Uber on the weekends. And actually, I picked up one guy one time that actually does a lot of the tourist stuff for the island out here. So they got a company out here and they do all their little marketing and they have luau's and all these other things. And he said, hey man, if you want, we could go swing by my shop real quick. I'll get you a bunch of pamphlets and things like that. And anybody that you send to me, each time somebody buys something, I'll throw $20 your way. Oh, okay. So I got a bunch of the pamphlets. I stuck it in the back of my car, like in the little back seat thing. And as I picked up people from the airport, because that's what I used to mostly do. I used to get up because I would do it on the weekends. I'd get up at 4:30 in the morning because I'm used to getting up early. And I would go out on a Saturday and a Sunday, 4:30 in the morning till about noon. And I would just do drives back and forth to the airport. And I would pick people up and they'd be like, oh, hey, what do you know about this luau? Do you think this is good? I was like, yeah, hey, call my buddy. Here's his number. He'll get you set up. And so I was not only getting paid to drive these people to their hotel, but if they signed up for any of those things, I would get Venmo'd $20, which was really cool. So that became a whole different side hustle. And then, of course, when I came back from my brother's wedding in March of 2020, I flew back from Texas because that's where the wedding was. And like the world ended. And I'm like, I am not doing Uber. I'm not picking people up. It's just not worth the risk. So I stopped and I haven't done it since. But that was like a neat little thing. There's little things that you can do to just add on to that experience. So I was making money from Uber, but I was also making this little side hustle cash from being an affiliate for this guy and promoting his stuff. I've seen other Uber drivers out there. Like there's this one guy on YouTube that I love watching some of his stuff sometimes. He does karaoke in his car. He gives you a microphone, you get in the car, there's a songbook. He tells you to pick a song. And as you're driving to the destination, he'll throw on the music and you could sing your heart away. Now, I can tell you, he's not really making money from that, but you know what he is getting? I guarantee you that they're leaving that car happy. They're probably giving him much better tips than they would give like another Uber driver. And on top of that, he's got content now for his social media channel, which has a large following on his YouTube channel. And that is now monetized. So it's all these things that kind of like talk to each other. So there's just so much you can do today. And like you said, social media is huge and you got to take advantage of it. I don't have a huge TikTok following. I just got started on it, but I could already tell you, I'm getting podcast downloads and podcast listens from that platform because I can see the referral. I can see where people click the link from. I can see where they came from. And if they're coming from my links page, it's most likely because that was what they clicked on from TikTok, because that's one of the places where I have it there and on my Instagram. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's been one of my biggest drivers this last year. Once I got on TikTok, it hasn't even been a year. And yeah, I'll say from people opting into my email list and then finding, so I've had a lot, I would say the majority of my income actually coming from TikTok that way. And then also now making videos for other people, for affiliates or brand marketing for other companies that are approaching me to create content for them.
That's fantastic. Well done. Yeah. So I do the same thing with my podcast right now. So once my podcast hit like a certain threshold, people have reached out to me to do sponsorships. I have affiliates too that I'll do commercials and stuff for. So as people click that stuff, they do it through mine. It's like a little side income, which is great. But the way I look at it is all the stuff that I make from the podcast, I just reinvest into the podcast. I've used it to buy equipment. I've used it to hire the editing team that I use to actually edit the episodes. So all of this is just very self-sufficient, and it's not really something I have to spend money on and worry about, which is really cool.
Yeah, so, I think it depends on what you want to do that side hustle for. You're making a good point. I just want to put this content out there. Like for you on your podcast, I just want to meet cool people and get this information out to the world.
People like Tawnya.
And then people like me. Hello. I'm just kidding. But no, for real. Then you can just, it's paying for itself. Like you said, like maybe you're not making like tens of thousands a month, but hey, I'm putting myself out there. I love what I'm doing. And other people are like, I just want to make money so that I can pay off debt faster, or that I can save for a vacation or whatever it is. So you really have to be clear on where you're going as well. And not just
I'm in a pretty good spot in life right now where I'm not too worried about like expenses or money or things like that. So the whole reason why I started this show was to try to help other people get to this same level, get themselves out of debt, get themselves to a spot where they can start investing and things like that. And that's been one of the most rewarding things. Is sure, I get thousands of downloads, right, when people listen to my show, which is awesome. But the thing that impacts me the most is when I get like a DM or a message saying, hey, I listened to this episode and I thought that was really awesome. Or, hey, this changed my life. Things like that is like the most moving thing to me. And that's the most rewarding thing. So it's quite amazing the impact you can make on people just for having a conversation. Like I'm doing something I love right now, sitting here, have a conversation with you. I love to talk. I love to talk about money. I love to talk about like how you can better yourself, mindset and things like that. And you do too, right? It's what you do with your social media content creation. And so here's just the two of us sitting here having an awesome conversation, and hopefully somebody can get something out of it and decide to make that step today to try to change their life. And it's just something like that that's just so impactful. I would like to ask you, for our listeners here, because we do talk about like finances and getting out of debt and everything else. So we talked about the whole getting out of debt piece, but is there anything like in particular that you personally invest in? Like are you in the stock market? Do you invest in real estate, or do you invest in businesses like such as your social media and things like that? What are some of the things you do to start building your passive income streams?
Yeah, I'll say for now, all the money that I make from my coaching does go back into, the majority of it goes back into my business. And then I also still have a full-time job in marketing and doing creative for a health and life coaching company. So it all works together, which is great. And we also do online courses. And what I do with that is obviously I invest now about 30 to 40, actually, probably one of my paychecks a month, maybe always almost 50% in mutual funds, in ETFs, in the stock market. So I have a financial advisor I work with, and that's where I'm really focused on, is getting that number. I haven't invested in real estate or anything yet. And I feel like that's a plan eventually, but for now I have goals on getting that to a certain number, which now it's a little bit over 100,000, which was a really exciting milestone for me this year. And then, building that up while I'm still on the younger side and being able for that money to grow for me long-term is like my main goal.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a great main goal to have. I just want to say, Tawnya, to you, just congratulations on your success so far. You've really come a long way from what I've seen on the videos you produce, and then your website is absolutely gorgeous. It's amazing. It looks great. I could definitely tell you put a lot of work into that and a lot of passion, or hired somebody who's really good at it. Obviously, you know what you're doing. You care about what you're doing. You care about the product. You care about the image that you're putting out there to people, and that's super important, because there's a lot of people that they'll just throw stuff out there and be like, oh yeah, I'm a coach, or I could do this, I could do that, but they're not really in it. You know what I'm saying? You've lived that life, you've lived that struggle, and you're able to use your experiences, both personal and professional now, what you've learned from other people, and you can use that to help benefit other people. And that's super huge. I just want to say again, congratulations. And then I also want to say thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me today. I have to ask you one more question. It's the most important question of all. We're sitting here having an awesome conversation. And I know that my listeners are probably sitting here saying, hey, where do I find more information about Tawnya? What's her TikTok? We need to know more. So with that being said, where can people find more information about you? What is your website? And then if any social media profiles or anything like that you'd like to share with us, please let us know.
Yeah. So I will say that I do focus on helping women, but I do have male clients, and males have taken my course as well. So I am open to any gender, all genders. And I am also found at themoneylifecoach.com. So that's where my main website is. My social media is my name, Tawnya Schultz. I'm sure it'll be posted here. It's a little bit tricky of a spelling, but Tawnya Schultz or The Money Life Coach. You can find me on TikTok and on Instagram is where I post mostly.
Fantastic. Yes. And we will have all of those links in the show notes. So if you're driving, don't sit here and try to write that down. Focus on the road, and make sure you can check the show notes later, copy and paste it, click it, whatever you got to do. I'll make it easy for you. You can find everything on Tawnya and find out more about her by checking out her website. And I highly recommend, if you have TikTok, I know it can be addicting sometimes, and sometimes people just delete it because they waste away watching so many videos on there. But I'm telling you right now, if there's a channel that you need to follow so you can keep your mind in the right place, definitely follow Tawnya. Check out everything she's doing. It's absolutely awesome. Her story is awesome. Again, Tawnya, like I said before, I'm humbled and thankful that you said yes to coming on the show. And I really appreciate you having this conversation with me today.
Yeah, this was great. Anytime. I'd love to come back soon.
All right. Absolutely. All right. You take care, and we're out of here.